The story begins on a freezing highway, where an office bus is transporting a group of employees to a skiing resort. Along the way, the bus gets into an accident, and everyone on it passes away. After dying, all of the employees wake up in a blank space, where they form lines to prepare for reincarnation. Among these employees is a man called Arahito, who looks around and realizes that all his co-workers passed away with him. He is greeted by a receptionist, who gives him a phone and tells him to ask a guild for a job once he has reincarnated. Although he doesn't completely understand, the woman pushes him into a new world, in a place called Labyrinth Country. The country was built during medieval times, so Arahito looks extremely out of place with his office clothes among the common folk. He visits the guild to get a job, where he finds one of his former co-workers, Shiramiya. She registers for a job as a shrine maiden and turns around to leave. She encounters a woman called Elidia, who asks her to join her party. Shiramiya explains that she's new to the world, so Elidia nods since she knows about the new reincarnation. However, she explains that her abilities as a vanguard make it difficult for rearguards to keep up with her, so she needs a new teammate. Watching her try to recruit Shiramiya, some bystanders begin to make fun of Elidia. Although they think she is strong, they tell her that her team would never work because Elidia has a strange condition. Despite their discouragement, Shiramiya accepts her offer, so Elidia smiles and leaves with her. Then, the receptionist asks Arahito if he wants to register. She introduces herself as Luisa and explains that in this country, a person is not allowed to enter their labyrinth unless they are a registered seeker. Arahito understands her words, but he asks her to explain more about the country itself. Luisa smiles, explaining that the people who die and reincarnate are sent to Labyrinth Country to live as seekers. Together with the world's native people, it is the seeker's job to explore the labyrinth. Realizing that he had truly died, Arahito gets a headache from the shock of this new world. Concerned, Luisa asks if he needs a healer, but he reassures her he's fine. He then asks her about the registration, so Luisa explains that he has a blank job description on his phone. She asks Arahito to fill in the job description that he thinks is best for him, explaining that their country lets everyone perform the tasks they are most suited for. Arahito nods, thinking that he should pick a job that is in high demand in this country. Luisa smiles and waits for him to think it over. Recalling his previous life, Arahito thinks about his young boss, Igarashi, who used to make him overwork all the time. Forced to obey his corporate master, the poor man was stressed by her ramblings all the time. Now, in this world, he has gotten the chance to choose whatever job he wants, so he decides to do something relaxing for his own sake. Suddenly, Igarashi appears behind him, startling the poor guy. She gets annoyed by his reaction and says that the medieval world feels like a giant cosplay party to her. Still, she accepts her fate since there's nowhere else to go. Igarashi also makes a casual comment that she wasn't expecting to hunt monsters, which surprises Arahito since he knows nothing about them. She explains that defeating monsters is actually an important job given to seekers in this world. She warns him to pick his job and party very carefully, or else he could lose his life in the dangerous labyrinth. Then, she wonders what job Arahito has picked. From her time as his manager, Igarashi is used to relying on him for help. She shyly hopes that he can pick a job that would synergize with her class. So Arahito starts sweating bullets, thinking that he's going to become her punching bag in his new life. As he asks what job she picked, Igarashi notes that he's still speaking to her in formal terms. She feels upset that he's being so distant, hoping that they could get closer. However, she swallows her pride and refuses to say it out loud. She tells Arahito that her job is Valkyrie, so she can wield swords and spears along with spirit magic. He's surprised by the number of abilities she picked, but she thinks that having multiple roles could save both her life and job in this unpredictable world. She also tells Arahito to ensure he picks different roles to avoid getting replaced by someone else. He thanks her for the advice, saying that he'll be careful when joining a team. Igarashi is surprised by his distant response since she expected him to form a team with her. However, Arahito is denser than a rock, so he keeps missing her hints. Eventually, she gets disappointed and leaves. After she leaves, Arahito wonders why she was behaving so strangely. Luisa then reminds him that he still hasn't picked a job. To help him decide, she explains that he can earn contribution points through his job. In their world, seekers can earn points by collecting valuable treasure, defeating strong monsters, and saving other seekers. Aside from acting as a source of of money. Contribution points are also used to rank seekers on the labyrinth leaderboard. After explaining this, Louisa tells Arahito that his phone will record all of his actions within the labyrinth. She reveals that a seeker's ranking is extremely important since it determines their status within the country. While high-ranked seekers can enjoy a luxurious life, lower-ranked seekers can essentially become broke and be forced to live in a stable. Hearing this, Arahito decides to take his job selection even more seriously. From the earlier incident, he overheard how about rear guards, so he asks if it's an in-demand job. Laoja nods, explaining that while rear guards are important roles, they receive less HP and defense than vanguard and other roles, so not many people can be a good rear guard. Because of this shortage, there's high demand for rear guards in most parties. After thinking about it, Arahito figures that rear guard is the best pick to avoid going jobless, wondering which special skills he should pick as a rear guard. He writes the word on the phone screen. Suddenly, the phone's screen flashes brightly, and Arahito's writing gets completely garbled. Louisa is surprised by this and takes a look at his phone. She puts on her glasses and concentrates hard, trying to understand what happened. In the end, she simply hands the phone back to Arahito and claims that his job request was successful. Naturally, Arahito realizes that she's only pretending to be in control and asks her what really happened. In a sheepish tone, Louisa tells him that normally, whatever a person writes is accepted by the application. This is the first time she has seen these garbled characters, so she has no idea if Arahito has received a proper rearguard role or not. She also warns him that the application might have given him some random abilities, realizing that he might never get into a party with random abilities. Arahito is completely stunned. Thankfully, Louisa takes some responsibility for his situation and gives him a free mercenary card so he can recruit a teammate for himself. Afterward, he looks at the phone in his hands to examine his abilities. He learns that he has a defense support skill, along with an ability called Rear View that allows him to see what's behind him. After some time, he thinks about spending some level up points on his recovery support and defense support abilities. He then decides to check the city store for potions and healing items before leveling up his recovery support. Eventually, he only levels up his defense support skill. After that, he visits the mercenary office. He asks the vice chief, Layla, what he can get with his mercenary ticket. She explains that he can get a demi-human servant with the ticket, so Arahito wonders if he can get a vanguard user. Layla tells him that she only has one vanguard at the moment, who happens to be a female lizardman. She tells him that this lizardman is a rogue who is capable of carrying decent equipment, so she would be enough for his first trip to the labyrinth. Hoping to test his skills soon, Arahito asks her to get the lizardman for him. While Layla leaves to fetch the demi-human, he wonders if the lizardman would look like a gross monster. To his surprise, the lizardman girl, called Derja, is actually a human-looking child. As Layla introduces her, she explains that Derja was once human, but she turned into a demi-human after dying in the dungeon. In their world, all seekers who die suffer the same fate. Once they transform into demi-humans, they lose their former personalities and the ability to talk. Now, they are only useful as slaves. Arahito feels bad about owning another person, but Layla reminds him that demi-humans don't have their own personalities anyway, so it's legal to use them. She also reveals that they can fight using their instincts, so he won't need to guide her for every fight. Arahito finally accepts her explanation and greets Derja, hoping to form a successful party with her. Still, while heading for the labyrinth, he decides he won't force the little girl to fight. After testing out his defense enhancement skills, he hopes to come back to the city. Soon, he reaches the entrance to the labyrinth's first level, called the Field of Dawn. Some experienced adventurers greet him, thinking that he looks similar to a Japanese Valkyrie who came here earlier. Arahito realizes that they're probably talking about Igarashi and figures that she has already formed a party. The seeker leader, called Ribalt, explains that he rescues stranded seekers from the labyrinth for a living. Arahito returns his greeting, curious to know if the labyrinth is really as dangerous as it sounds. He explains that the dungeon has some real dangers, but as long as Arahito sticks to the low-level monsters, he'll be fine. However, he warns him to avoid named monsters at all costs. Arahito learns that aside from normal monsters, named monsters have special titles and carry powerful abilities. Anytime a named monster encounters a novice, it is automatically a death sentence for them. Ribalt warns him to stay far away from named monsters, so Arahito thanks him for the advice. Ribalt then tells him to contact him at any anytime if he needs help. He explains that many other search parties constantly patrol the dungeons, but they can occasionally miss some people. Arahito accepts all his advice, then heads down into the labyrinth with Derja. Inside, he finds a lush field filled with natural streams. After a little walking, he encounters a strange cotton ball that rolls up to him. Arahito checks his phone to see if it's a monster, but the cotton ball starts spinning at Mach speeds. Derja notices its movements immediately, so she draws her dagger while Arahito is distracted. Since the cotton ball is just a level 1 monster, Arahito doesn't feel worried. Suddenly, it shoots towards him at a blinding speed, but Derja blocks it with her dagger. The impact from the attack blows him to the ground, and he is shocked to see that the monster actually injured Derja. Despite her injuries, she continues to defend her master. As Derja's HP bar keeps going down, Arahito decides to make a move. He uses his defense support skill, which helps her completely block the cotton ball's attack. While the monster is being held back, he alerts Derja to attack it on his signal. He then attacks the monster with a slingshot, which gives her the chance to kill it with her dagger. Although Arahito feels happy with his victory, he gets upset by Derja's injuries. He asks her if they should leave to help her recover, but she shakes her head. Then, he apologizes to her and thanks her for protecting him, as Arahito promises to support her in the future. He hears a woman screaming in terror. After checking out the noise, he finds Igarashi and her teammates facing off against a powerful monster. Quickly, Arahito descends to help her, while Igarashi's teammates complain about their bad luck for encountering a named monster so soon. Suddenly, the named monster, called Redface, lunges towards Igarashi, and Arahito shouts at her to take cover. Reacting to the monster, Igarashi uses her Valkyrie skill, Mirage Step, to avoid its attack and save her party members. However, after being escorted to safety, one of the adventurers she just saved uses a teleport scroll to leave the labyrinth. As the scroll is activated, it teleports the man and his teammate out of the dungeon, but leaves Igarashi behind. Seeing this, Arahito realizes that Igarashi actually wasn't in their party, so she just saved them out of kindness while they left her behind. He jumps in to help her against the monster, but Igarashi tells him to stay behind. He ignores her warning and attacks Redface with his slingshot, but the small pebble does 0 damage to it. Igarashi turns around and uses a thunderbolt spell, but even that completely fails to hurt the monster. Then, it starts spinning into a ball and shoots towards her for an attack. Watching her take a defensive stance, Arahito realizes that she's out of energy for using Mirage Step again. Although Igarashi tries to parry the attack, Redface avoids her spear and instead attacks her with a dive bomb. Arahito quickly tries to use defense support to help her, but the spell fails to work since she's not a member of his party. The attack connects brutally, and Igarashi is sent flying to the ground. Then, Redface lurches towards Arahito, so Derja jumps in to defend him. Arahito quickly uses defense support again, which works and completely stops the monster's charge. Seeing that his skills are capable of blocking the monster, Arahito feels guilty that he didn't accept Igarashi's offer to team up back then. Nearby, Igarashi weakly urges Arahito to run for his life. She apologizes for being too weak, but he returns an apology of his own for failing to protect her. Then, he focuses on the monster, since his defense support can fully block its attack. Arahito thinks that Derja can kill the creature if he buffs her with his attack support skill. He tells Derja to get ready, so when Redface tries to attack Igarashi again, she steps in to block it. As she rushes to attack the monster, Arahito buffs her strength with his support magic, allowing her to chop up the beast with one blow. Once the monster is defeated, Arahito heaves a sigh of relief. Nearby, Ribald notices the fight, so Arahito tells Derja to call him for help. She agrees, but as Arahito tends to Igarashi's injuries, she notices a strange glow coming from her chest. Arahito looks at his stats. Learning that he has leveled up after defeating Redface, he covers Igarashi's exposed body with his jacket and supports her. He then asks her to join his party so he can use his recovery support skill to heal her wounds. Igarashi smiles at his care, but she doesn't refuse his offer. After tending to her, he walks over to the dead monster and tucks it into his inventory. Behind him, Ribalt and the others carry the injured Igarashi away. Then, Aledia also appears with Suzuna, surprised by the commotion. Arahito explains that they just had a run-in with a named monster, which leaves her shocked. Usually, a red-faced cotton ball is strong enough to destroy level 3 parties on its own, so it's extremely surprising that the level 1 Arahito defeated defeated it with just his mercenary. Impressed by his abilities, Elydia introduces herself to him. Suzuna looks over, wondering if the injured person is someone who reincarnated with them. Arahito nods, but he reassures her that Igarashi will heal because of his recovery skill. Hearing this, Elydia is surprised once more, since rear guards usually do not get to access a large variety of support skills. Arahito understands that a well-rounded rear guard like him is very rare, but he refuses to elaborate since he doesn't want Elydia to recruit him. He turns around and leaves, returning to the mercenary guild to hand Derja over. Layla tells Derja to return her weapons before going back, so she nods. However, the young girl hesitates before leaving, wanting to say something to Arahito. Layla notices her strange behavior and wonders what she wants. Suddenly, Derja places her hand on his chest before returning to the guild. Both Arahito and Layla are incredibly surprised. Layla explains that Derja has taken a liking to him, so he wonders if he can recruit her as a permanent member. Hearing this, Layla is even more surprised. Usually, she does not let anyone buy permanent members unless they are trustworthy. Seeing how much Derja likes him, she decides to trust him and reveals that it'll take 100 copper tickets to fully buy Derja. Although the price seems high, Arahito thinks it's well worth it, since Derja was extremely helpful during his quest. Later, he returns to the Adventurers Guild to report his progress. Feeling worried since he encountered a named monster, Luisa feels relieved upon seeing him. Arahito shows her the defeated Redface, so she reveals that it was a bounty monster. The reward for defeating it is 20 gold coins, while Arahito also earned 280 contribution points for the kill. Seeing this, she is incredibly shocked, since it took her killing 50 cotton balls to only get 105 points. Arahito also notices that he received 50 trust points, so she explains that these are points he gets from helping others. Although trust is not a metric that can be quantified, the system awards trust points as a rough estimate of an adventurer's trustworthiness as they help other seekers in need. Usually, a seeker cannot gain more than 5 trust points per expedition. However, Arahito somehow gained 10 times the amount, so Luisa wonders what kind of incredible feat he pulled. Hearing this, he wonders if he gained those trust points because of his good treatment towards Derja. Luisa also explains that a seeker's trust points determine how quickly their contribution points can grow. Hearing this, he realizes that he'll grow in trust points very quickly since a rear guard provides support to both the vanguards and the midguards of the party. However, Arahito feels worried that he might get too popular and end up attracting too much attention. He asks her to keep his overpowered class a secret. She stops, understanding that unnecessary fame could cause trouble for him, and promises to keep it a secret. She also explains that Arahito has risen into the top half of the seekers living in their district, which means he gets to live in a brand new suite. She informs him that Igarashi has also woken up, so he leaves to visit her. Igarashi thanks him for saving her life, saying that he'll experience a huge rise to fame with his abilities. She compares herself to him, thinking that she was a complete failure in contrast. Although she picked a flashy class, she failed to recruit any team members and got defeated by a monster. However, Arahito doesn't think that way. He tells her that it was extremely cool of her to defend the other seekers and stand her ground against an undefeatable foe. He also points out that he got extremely lucky in his first fight ever, so he didn't just defeat the named monster from pure skill. Then, he asks her to join his party, knowing that his former boss has incredibly high demands. Arahito feels nervous, thinking she might not accept. Hearing his words, Igarashi turns away in embarrassment. He thinks that she's rejecting him, so he prepares to leave, but Igarashi softly agrees to join his party. Then, she asks him to stop calling her chief, since they're not co-workers anymore. Arahito smiles, accepting her request. A few days later, Igarashi has recovered, so they explore the city together. Along the way, they find a store, so Igarashi goes in to check some clothes out. Watching her pick clothes, Arahito feels surprised, since he has never seen her without office clothes. She smiles, embarrassed, explaining that she always had to return home early after work. Although she was a working adult, her parents always controlled her life, so Igarashi was put on a curfew at night. Because of this, she tried her best to move up the ranks and gain a position where her parents couldn't order her around. Now, in this new world, she can make her own choices. Arahito is interested in learning this new side of his manager. Igarashi apologizes for putting so much stress on him in their past life, so he smiles and forgives her. Now, he wants her to look towards the future since they've begun a fresh start as party members. As the two of them have dinner, Arahito overhears some seekers in their discussion. Apparently, Elydia is related to someone called the Death Sword, and she is visiting their district from outside. According to the adventurers, she is recruiting novice seekers and training them up to take on a certain job. Also, she left a top party called the White Knight Brigade and escaped from them. One of the seekers says they should take advantage of the opportunity since a high-ranking seeker like Elydia must have plenty of money. However, the boss quickly cuts him off, warning that someone might overhear them in the crowded restaurant, so the group drops the conversation. Later, Arahito returns home and invites Igarashi to stay with him since he has been given a large suite. The two sleep on opposite sides of a curtain, but later that night, Igarashi becomes restless. She peeks over the curtain and asks Arahito to turn away. For some reason, she feels embarrassed whenever he's facing her. Arahito agrees, but then he realizes that his recovery support skill has connected him with her. If the skill is still active, it might be creating some warm feelings in Igarashi's heart for him. After learning this, he decides to get a separate bed for her as soon as possible. The next morning, he heads out with Igarashi for another expedition. Once again, he rents Therja for her services. As Igarashi meets her, she tries to introduce herself. However, Therja remains silent, so she wonders if she did something wrong. Arahito smiles, explaining that Therja just doesn't talk to anyone. Then, they head into an equipment shop and obtain some custom items built with Redface's materials. Later, in the labyrinth, Therja stands with a new red buckler that reduces fire damage. Igarashi has equipped a defensive scarf, while Arahito has enhanced his slingshot to fire flame pellets. With their new equipment, they face off against a bunch of weaker monsters. After taking down a cotton ball, the group faces some poison bees. Arahito tells Igarashi and Therja to get information and enhances their defense with his support skill. Then, they all take down the monsters together. After a while, they reach the entrance of floor 2. Although Arahito wants to gain points to permanently purchase Therja, he feels afraid that the stronger monsters would hurt his party members. Recently, news of a named monster has been going around on floor 2, which makes the trip even riskier. Arahito turns around to leave, but they suddenly hear a woman screaming from the other side. Quickly, everyone rushes to the second floor. There, they find Suzuna and Elydia faced off against a massive fanged orc and poison bees. Although Elydia is able to kill the orc, the bees surround Suzuna. Seeing this, Arahito tells his party members to lure the bees away. He tries to shoot one of them with a fire pellet, but the bee is too far to hit. Thankfully, Therja reaches it just in time, so Arahito gives her cover with his defense support, allowing her to kill the bee from safety. Then, Igarashi kills another bee with a thunderbolt. As the monsters are defeated, Suzuna collapses from relief. She feels bad that she dragged her captain down, but Elydia thinks she did a great job lasting against the previous floor's monsters. Arahito understands that Elydia was helping her defeat stronger monsters to gain experience quickly. However, he thinks this approach is too dangerous for a newbie like Suzuna. Elydia shakes her head, saying she doesn't have time to wait. After she wants Suzuna to become as strong as her, she blurts out that she needs it to return somewhere. Although Elydia stops herself from saying too much, Arahito calls her out. He wonders if she's talking about the White Knight Brigade, which stuns her into silence. Elydia explains that she doesn't want to return to the White Knight Brigade. Instead, she wants to return to her friend, Misaki, who was lost on the second floor. It turns out that Misaki had chosen a gambler class for herself, thinking she had good luck. However, while she was adventuring with Elydia, she opened a chest, hoping to find some good loot. Unfortunately, the chest contained a teleport trap, which teleported her away to a random spot on the floor. Although Elydia doesn't know her location at the moment, she thinks that the trap would only be limited to the second floor itself. Hearing her story, Igarashi recalls how scared she felt when her friends abandoned her against Redface, thinking that Misaki is feeling the same way. She tells Arahito that she wants to help her. He asks Elydia if there are other parties on the second floor who can help. She shakes her head, explaining that although she saw no other parties, she felt like she was being watched by someone. Igarashi wonders why this floor is so suspicious, and Arahito thinks that the suspicious guys in the tavern must have something to do with it. Still, without knowing their plan, he knows they can only go in blind. Arahito wonders if they should split up to cover ground quickly. However, this would put the individual groups at a much greater risk if they encountered a monster horde. In the end, he decides to move with everyone. He asks Elydia and Suzuna to join their group, explaining that he can't support them as a rearguard without being a party member. Elydia thinks about his offer. Knowing that Erehido's abilities are genuinely worth considering, she tells Suzuna to join his party, saying that she'll fight alone. Otherwise, her higher level would cause the rest of their party to gain fewer experience points. Erehido agrees with her plan, but then he recalls her complaining about the Vanguard class. He wonders what the downside is, so Elydia tells him to leave her behind and escape with the party if she ever says so. Erehido nods, knowing that he shouldn't push her for further explanation. She also explains that Suzuna has a return scroll, so he can use it to escape a dangerous situation. After discussing everything, she asks Erehido to lead the way. Then, Suzuna formally joins his party and introduces herself to everyone. Even Nerja holds out a hand for her, so she rushes to shake it. Afterward, they all start walking through the second floor. On the way, Erehido thinks it's a pity that Elydia couldn't join his party, since her powerful abilities would become even stronger combined with his support. Suddenly, a woman's loud shriek breaks his train of thought. As everyone hears it, Suzuna points out that the voice belongs to Misaki. In front of them, the terrified girl passes out from fear as a massive horde of orcs surrounds her. Towering over all the other orcs is a massive creature, which Erehido recognizes as the named monster, Juggernaut. Elydia notes that Juggernauts are extremely powerful named monsters that shouldn't be anywhere near the second floor. Clearly, someone has led this monster down here and set up Misaki as a trap for Elydia. Hearing this, Erehido realizes that the kidnappers must be nearby. Regardless of the trap, Elydia wants to save her friend, so she rushes to kill the orcs. Using her impressive sword skills, she takes out several of the orcs in one attack. However, as the blood from the orcs splashes into the air, a murky aura surrounds Elydia's body. Suddenly, her entire demeanor changes and she starts growling with rage. Igarashi and the others get ready to help her, but Elydia shouts at them to stay back. Wondering what's wrong, Erehido looks at his phone and learns that Elydia actually holds the Berserker skill. This skill activates when she comes into contact with another creature's blood, increasing her strength and speed, but causing her to lose control due to rage. Seeing this, Erehido finally realizes why she was so reluctant to join his party. Meanwhile, Elydia shouts at the air, screaming that she's not a murderer. In her crazed state, she jumps at the Juggernaut to kill it on her own. However, the monster's tough skin blocks her attack, as if it were made out of thick steel. Then, the Juggernaut uses its brutal voice skill, which stuns Elydia and everyone else with powerful sound waves. As Elydia struggles to regain her bearings, the Juggernaut easily picks her off the ground. Although she tries to struggle, she's clearly too weak to break out. Thinking she's doomed, she yells at Erehido to forget about her and run away with everyone. He knows that it would be extremely easy to return with the teleport scroll. Naturally, he won't just leave his friend to die. Erehido uses his blazing slingshot to shoot the Juggernaut's eyes. Although the pebble doesn't do any damage, the monster gets irritated and drops Elydia from its grip. It tries to attack her again, but this time, she's able to dodge it and get away. Then, Erehido tells the rest of his party to be prepared to run if things go south. None of them agrees to leave him behind, so he tells them to remain alert. Then, he thinks of a way to defeat the Juggernaut. Although none of the party members can withstand an attack from it, Elydia is able to dodge them. Thinking about this, he realizes that she has the greatest chance of defeating the monster. Erehido asks Elydia to join his party. Even if it's just temporary, he tells her that his rearguard abilities can help them win. Soon, he gets a message on his phone informing him that Elydia has joined. Then, he quickly tells Elydia to use a high-speed attack with multiple blows, although she cannot break through the Juggernaut's defenses on her own. This time, Erehido enhances her attack by a whole 10 points. With the boost from Erehido's support, Elydia rains down a shower of devastating attacks on the Juggernaut, causing it to scream in pain. Then, it starts bleeding from its entire body and collapses to the ground, dead. After the monster is defeated, everyone starts to celebrate. However, Erehido reminds them that the trap setters are still nearby. As Elydia pants on the ground, Erehido spots the suspicious men from the tavern hiding nearby. Realizing that they've been found, one of the men tries to attack Erehido with his crossbow. However, Suzuna and Igarashi easily block his arrows. The men are clearly shocked, but they don't get any time to react as Nerja rushes in and takes them out. Suzuna is surprised that her aim improved so much, so Arahito reminds her that his support skills carried her all the way. Then, he checks on Aledia, who thanks him for the help. Noting her exhausted condition, Arahito uses his recovery support skill to help her. He tells her to rest easy since Misaki has been saved. Aledia smiles, relieved that her friend is okay. On her own, she wasn't confident that she could save her, but thanks to Arahito's help, everything turned out fine. Soon, Misaki wakes up and finds Suzuna waiting for her. Without waiting for her to say anything, she jumps into her arms and starts crying from relief. Meanwhile, Aledia apologizes to Arahito for not being clear about her own background and abilities. At the moment, she feels overwhelmed, so she promises to explain everything later. Then, Arahito goes over to check the Juggernaut's corpse. In its hands, he finds a black chest. Seeing this, Aledia explains that most named monsters do not drop black chests. Because of their rarity, a black chest is one of the most valuable treasures in the labyrinth. In fact, Aledia warns Arahito not to open the chest on his own because of the great loot inside. Black chests can come with dangerous traps. Because of this, Aledia tells Arahito to find an official chest cracker at the guild to disable the traps before opening his chest. He nods while Misaki comes over to thank him. After going through this traumatic experience, she has decided to be more careful during her journeys in the labyrinth. However, the young girl suddenly changes gears and asks Arahito to treat her to a nice lunch to help her forget her trauma. Although he's weirded out, the rest of the girls ask to eat as well, so he has no choice but to agree. As everyone plans to return home, Arahito tells Derja that he'll drop her off at the mercenary office. However, she refuses to leave. Seeing this, Igarashi thinks that she wants to eat with them. Derja moves closer to Arahito, causing Misaki to admire her cute lizard hat. Later, they return to the guild to report their expedition to Luisa. The poor woman almost faints after hearing the name, Juggernaut. Arahito casually explains that he killed the monster to save Misaki, so she tells him to join her in a private room. There, she serves tea and explains that not all named monsters are created equal. Juggernauts are a type of named fanged orc, and they happen to be one of the strongest named species. A little while ago, a group of parties with over 24 seekers had tried to kill a juggernaut for its loot. However, most of them died, and only the ones who survived were led by the man called Burgeon, who later tried to trap Misaki. Hearing this, Arahito understands that Burgeon's group used Misaki as bait, hoping to make Aledia kill the juggernaut, as she would become exhausted from the fight. Burgeon and his cronies would swoop in to steal the loot. Thankfully, Arahito was there, so they got arrested and turned in instead. Luisa reassures him that Burgeon's group will face justice, since the guild also acts as a police force for their district. Arahito asks her if the Labyrinth country has a king, so she shakes her head. She reveals that this country is ruled by the cathedral and the guides of the Adventurers Guild. Hearing this, Arahito wonders if it's the policy of the cathedral and guides to make reincarnation seek treasure for them. She nods and also explains that the different floors of the labyrinth exist somewhere else in the world. However, for some unknown reason, only the Labyrinth country has the entrances that can teleport people to these floors. After this, Luisa refrains from speaking further, clearly not wanting to reveal too much. Then, she takes a look at all the contribution points gained by Arahito on this trip. As she goes over the details, she realizes that he basically gained a bajillion contribution points, as well as a new bunch of trust points from Aledia, Suzuna, and his own party members. In fact, Arahito now has so many contribution points that he ranks second in their entire district. Hearing this, Luisa is beyond impressed. Arahito thanks her for the praise, but suddenly, Misaki bursts in and demands dinner. Hearing this, he asks Luisa to join them as well since she's also a friend. She smiles, happily accepting his offer. Later that night, at the restaurant, the girls fight for spots to sit next to Arahito. In the end, it's Misaki who sits without hesitation, and Derja who silently slips right next to him. Once everyone has sat down, Arahito orders dinner. Then, he tells everyone that after they're done with dinner, he will visit the mercenary office to purchase Derja's freedom, making her a permanent member of his party. As Derja listens, surprised, he announces that he'll do everything he can to help her regain her human body. After his announcement, everyone remains silent, processing his words. Igarashi wonders if it's even possible to transform a demi-human back to their normal selves. So Arihito recalls Layla's words. Back when he first rented Derja's services, Layla informed him that some demi-humans have gone back to their original bodies. This means that there must be a way to restore them in this world. Louisa chimes in, explaining that in order to restore a demi-human back to normal, they must visit the cathedral in District 4. Aside from this, she doesn't know the specific details. However, she also warns that District 4 is quite a distance away from their current district, which is number 8. Because of this, Arihito will have to experience far more dungeons while traveling there than he did in the labyrinth. Hearing this, Aledia also admits that she has only made it to District 5 herself. Hearing this, Arihito realizes that it's not going to be a simple trip. Previously, he was hoping to help Derja with the whole party, but now, he doesn't want to drag them all into his dangers. He tells everyone at the table that if they don't want to risk their lives going to District 4 with him, he won't stop them. Whether or not the other party members agree, Arihito remains determined to help Derja in repaying all the times she has helped him. As he's deep in thought, Igarashi confidently agrees to go with him. She admits that Derja has helped her as well, so she wants to repay the favor too. Besides, Igarashi thinks that the trip won't be nearly as dangerous as Arihito thinks. She knows that he's a careful man who never puts other people's lives in danger. Even in their previous life, when he was just a co-worker, he would prevent others from overworking themselves. Instead, he would carry all their burdens alone, taking more personal risk to protect the others. Now, Igarashi wants to come with him so he doesn't shoulder all the heavy responsibility alone. Louisa also thinks that with Arihito's incredible rearguard abilities, they will succeed on their trip. Suddenly, Misaki also says that she wants to go. Because of her carefree nature, she doesn't want to stay in the same boring place all the time. Also, her gambler instinct tells her that staying near Arihito will improve her chances of survival in this harsh world. Arihito laughs, playfully hoping that her instinct is correct. Then, Suzuna offers to join him as well. Knowing Derja's pitiful situation, she wants to help her return to normal any way she can. However, because she's still under Aledia's lead, she wants to receive her permission first. As everyone's eyes turn to Aledia, she sighs and places a hand on her sword. Knowing that everyone has an idea of her problematic background, she explains that it's related to her sword, which was dropped by a named monster. However, the weapon was cursed to transform its wielder into an evil class holder. Because Aledia equipped the sword, she gained the class of Cursed Blade. This class forced her to gain the Berserker trait, which causes her to go wild anytime she comes into contact with blood. She also reveals that because the sword is cursed, she cannot unequip it either. At this, Arihito asks a simple question: why she didn't examine the sword for a curse before equipping. Aledia explains that when she obtained this sword, she was still a part of the White Knight Brigade. Unfortunately, the brigade only accepted strong members, and it forced all its party members to increase their power as soon as possible. Because of this, they didn't care if a strong treasure had a curse on it. At the time, Aledia was also focused on getting stronger no matter what, so she didn't think about the consequences of a permanent curse. Now, she regrets doing it. Every time she goes to battle, the sword transforms her into a bloodthirsty beast she doesn't want to be. She thinks that this feeling of becoming something against her own will is extremely similar to Derja's, who was forced to be a demi-human despite being born as a human. Sympathizing with her situation, Aledia agrees to help her as well. Arihito thanks her for joining him, but she admits that she needs his help in return as well. Aside from helping Derja, she has a personal goal that she cannot achieve on her own. Hearing this, Arihito agrees to help her remove the weapon's curse as well. With everyone on board, the girls think the matter is settled, and it's time to head home. Watching all of them pledge their support to her, Derja seems genuinely surprised. Afterward, they head over to Arihito's residence. Before he can head to bed, he wants to purchase Derja's freedom from Layla's office. While he's out, Aledia and the other girls remain behind to explore their new house. Once they're all settled, Arihito leaves with Derja. At the mercenary office, Layla greets them, warning Arihito that if he were a bit later in returning Derja, he would have received a penalty on his next mission. At this, Arihito explains that he has already gotten the 100 copper tickets needed to purchase Derja, as he asks Layla if he's allowed to register Derja as an official member. She is surprised that he gathered the money so quickly. For a newbie like Arihito, she was expecting him to take a full month to gather all the tickets. Now, she's shocked that he got them all in just 2 quests. Arihito smiles at her praise, claiming that he just got lucky. He then tells Layla that his ultimate goal is to help Derja return to human form. Hearing this, Layla admits that she holds a similar wish in her heart. Although it's her job to manage mercenaries, in reality, she wants to help them return to their original forms as well. Unfortunately, Layla isn't strong enough to help them on their own. Because of this, she helps her mercenaries find kind masters who can help them in her stead. Facing Arihito, she thinks she can trust a man as kind as him. Receiving her honest praise, Arihito is genuinely stunned. He admits that at times, it feels like he can understand Derja's thoughts, even if she can't speak to him. Unless she returns to normal, he will never truly understand her real wishes. Hearing this, Layla also encourages him to try his best, saying that Derja seems to trust him deeply. After this, they finally seal the deal. On their way back home, Arihito notes Derja walking behind him. He reminds her that she can walk wherever she wants, so she steps ahead of him. After a bit, she decides to walk right beside him instead. He nods, allowing her to walk however she wants. Still, he reminds her to stay a little ahead of him in battle, so he can keep supporting her with his rearguard abilities. Hearing this, Derja clutches his clothes, so Arihito thinks she wants to head home sooner. She smiles, and both of them walk back home. Unfortunately, when they arrive at the hotel, Arihito learns that Misaki is shamelessly sleeping on his bed. Suzuna sheepishly points out that Misaki must have been exhausted from her kidnapping in the labyrinth, so Arihito lets the matter go. Then, Luisa and Igarashi come over, preparing to go to a bath. Hearing this, Suzuna realizes that if she and Elidia tried to go back to their original hotel, they'll run out of time for bathing by the time they're home. Thinking about all these logistical problems, Elidia reminds Arihito that he should move to his new home. This reminds Luisa that Arihito is in the top 10 of their district now, so he can live in the premium royal suite in their district. Unfortunately, the royal suite only allows 8 members to stay at a time, so he must manage this number carefully. Arihito wonders why it's limited and learns that the royal suites are built to accommodate only 1 party per house. Since each party can have only 8 members at once, the suites are built for this number. Elidia also thinks that the whole party should live together, so Arihito promises to move houses later. Afterward, he enters his room and sits down. He notices Derja standing nearby and asks her to sit. However, she remains standing there, so he lets her do whatever she wants. Then, he checks his phone for his skill points. After leveling up, he can choose between 2 skills called Backdraft and Hawkeye. Arihito is happy with Hawkeye, but he wonders how to check the other party members as well. Curious about Derja's stats, he asks her to show her license. At his request, she turns around, so Arihito wonders if it's something on her back. Then, he notes a strange mark on the back of her neck. From his previous conversations with Layla, Arihito realizes that this mark is probably a slave seal. Derja guides his hand to the seal, which causes it to glow a bright blue. Then, the seal soon changes color. Seeing this, Arihito figures that she has transferred her ownership to him. Meanwhile, Derja checks something on his phone and shows it to him. Now, it shows her status as a slave instead of a mercenary. Finally, Arihito can view her personal stats. Suddenly, Misaki barges into his room after waking up from her nap. She thanks Arihito for all his earlier help and promises to do her best in his party. With her gambler skill, she thinks their party will find good treasures more often. At the mention of her class, Arihito wonders why she chose it. Misaki simply explains that she used to get good luck in her past life with card games and local lotteries, so she decided to try her luck in the labyrinth as well. After explaining this, she notes that the rest of the girls are missing. Arihito informs her that they're all in the bath, so she leaves for the bath as well. With all his duties wrapped up, Arihito prepares to take a bath as well. Derja walks with him to the bath, but since they're divided into male and female sections, they part ways, and Arihito enters the male room. Afterward, he is forced to cool Derja with a hand fan. Because she's half lizard, the poor girl overheated in the hot water. Afterward, once everyone is done with their baths, it's time to arrange their sleeping spots. Arihito doesn't want to sleep with the women, so he assigns them 2 shared rooms while he sleeps in the last one alone. The only person who stays with him is Derja. For some reason, she keeps watch over him, so Arihito lets her be. Then, he checks his Hawkeye skill on his phone. This skill casts a strange infrared viewing field that only Arihito can see. Now, now. He feels like he can perceive the entire area around him with increased precision. With this skill, he thinks he can help his party even more. Soon, he feels the exhaustion from the earlier day and falls asleep on the couch. Derja sits in front of him, happy to keep watch for the entire night. The next morning, Luisa promises Erejito that she'll arrange the royal suite and chest cracker for him while she takes care of these problems. Erejito explains that he'll visit a dissection center to process all the monster materials from the Juggernaut and fanged orcs. Later, at the dissection center, the shop owner explains that the Juggernaut monster is too big for him alone. Because of this, every single dissection center in District 8 is processing different parts of the Juggernaut at the same time. Nearby, the owner's daughter examines the monster materials with fascination. Usually, she only gets boring materials to process, but now, she is getting back-to-back rarer materials from named monsters. Seeing this, Erejito reminds her that he can't promise a named monster every time he returns, since they're quite hard to find and defeat. Hearing this, the girl turns around. Wanting to visit the exciting labyrinth as well, she considers joining Erejito's party, hoping to work with rare materials every day. Then, she turns around to focus on her work again. Meanwhile, the shop owner asks Erejito what he wants to make with the Juggernaut's materials. For the time being, Erejito tells him to hold the materials since he hasn't decided whether to sell them or make equipment with them instead. Once they've discussed everything with the dissection shops, Erejito prepares to check out his royal suite. Aside from that, the main highlight of the day will be the rare black chest. With the help of a chest cracker, he wonders what kind of unique treasure he'll find inside. Before visiting the chest cracker, Erejito parts ways with the other girls so they can move into the royal suite on their own. Misaki's face lights up, and she starts grinning like a goblin. Suzuna apologizes for her behavior before leaving with the other girls. Later, as Erejito, Igarashi, and Derja are on their way to the chest cracker, Derja detects something strange and gets on guard. As Erejito wonders what's wrong, a massive dog monster steps in front of them. Surprised, the three of them get ready to fight, thinking it's a dangerous beast. But then a kind lady walks over and pets the dog like it's a house pet. This woman is actually the chest cracker, Thalma. She welcomes Erejito's group to her house and explains that the dog is a former guard beast called Shin. In the past, Shin used to fight with adventurers in the labyrinth, but now she has retired and stays at home with her kids. After explaining this, Thalma asks Erejito if she can inspect his black chest. Once he gives her permission, she reaches out, feeling the treasure underneath her fingertips. Even though she's an experienced chest cracker, Thalma feels excited since the chest is extremely rare. However, she warns Erejito that if she made a mistake in opening it, the chest would release a dangerous trap that would summon a monster horde directly in the city. In the worst-case scenario, the monster horde could literally destroy an entire chunk of the city if not stopped in time. Hearing this, Erejito and Igarashi get worried, but Thalma reassures them that with her craftsman's earrings and ring of mystery's treasure, she has a 100% success rate. After reassuring them of her abilities, she gets up to begin the cracking. First, she takes the chest into a special, guarded room. Then, she activates the chest, which releases a strange maze formation. Thalma explains that this maze is a defensive mechanism used to protect the chest like a lock. In order to open the lock, she must guide several balls in the maze to reach the end of it. If she fails to do it, the balls would get stuck, and the chest would activate a trap to summon monsters. Both Erejito and Igarashi watch nervously as she carefully guides each ball through the narrow maze passages. At times, it looks like the balls might reach a dead end, but Thalma always manages to move them forward. Finally, after some nerve-wracking minutes, she successfully clears the maze. As the lock opens, the chest glows with a brilliant light that forces Erejito to cover his eyes. Then, Thalma tells him to examine all his treasures. Seeing the treasures behind her, the entire party is shocked. Despite the chest's tiny size, it contained a gigantic pile of gold and treasure that could feed 100 families for a lifetime. Now, as Erejito goes through the treasures, Thalma warns him not to equip anything before she can appraise it, since the items could be cursed. After examining all the treasures, Erejito returns to the other girls. Misaki notes that he's wearing an armored vest and holding a new slingshot. This ebony sling is a special weapon that enhances his attacking stats while also having slots for runes. Erejito wonders what runes are, so Elydia explains that they're special magic stones that can add enchanted qualities to an item. Usually, equipment with rune slots is very rare, so this slingshot is an extremely valuable weapon. Aside from this, Arahito took a special light steel glove which enhances his support abilities. There's also got some new chameleon boots, which give her the ability to blend into her surroundings. As everyone admires the new equipment, they realize that Igarashi is missing. It turns out that she's hiding behind a wall, embarrassed by her new armor. After she comes out, everyone learns that she's wearing a new light steel armor, which greatly boosts her defensive and healing abilities. Aside from this, she is carrying a silk sash, which she gives to Suzuna for protection. After Suzuna equips it, Misaki thinks it perfectly suits her role as a shrine maiden. Arahito is surprised, since this is the first time he has learned about her background. Then, Suzuna points out that she recently gained quite a few levels and skill points. Igarashi says the same, so Misaki thinks they should visit the dungeon to test out their new equipment and abilities. Later, on the first floor of the dungeon, the party starts by facing a horde of cotton balls. As the monsters approach, Misaki gets scared, while the rest of the party prepares to fight. Noticing her fear, Arahito tells Misaki to try out her new weapons. She throws out some iron dice, which easily knock the cotton balls down. Arahito notices that these dice also boost her defense and healing abilities. Suddenly, a group of fanged orcs and poison bees appear in front of them. Against these monsters, Arahito tells Suzuna and Igarashi to use their new skills. Finally, he tells Derja to support Igarashi with her new weapon. As the two vanguards charge, Arahito and Suzuna take aim at the monsters. Suzuna uses an auto-hit skill, which easily tracks and defeats a poison bee. On the other hand, Arahito's obsidian slingshot easily cooks another bee. Then, Igarashi jumps up and slashes a huge orc apart with just one skill. Derja takes on another orc, chopping it in half with just one attack as well. Seeing their successful attacks, Arahito thinks that the team has become much stronger now. However, Suzuna tells him that all the other party members are glowing somehow. Hearing this, he takes a closer look, but finds nothing suspicious. Then, he wonders if she has a sixth sense that allows her to see this glow. Later, they proceed to the dungeon's third floor. Now, the landscape has changed from a vast patch of grass to a mountainous forest. Although the place looks more lively, Elydia warns everyone that the trees create more hiding spots for monsters, so they should be even more careful here. Suddenly, a loud monster roar startles everyone. As they all prepare themselves, a pack of one-eyed dog monsters appears in front of them. Arahito commands everyone to attack, beginning with a shot from his slingshot, while Suzuna also shoots a dog with her arrow. Both girls rush to parry the monsters, but suddenly one of the dogs glares at Igarashi, stopping her in her tracks. Paralyzed by the dog's magic, she's unable to dodge as two dogs rush to tear her apart. Thankfully, Derja jumps in and kills both dogs before they can hurt her. Once the dogs are dead, Arahito supports Igarashi, which removes the paralysis curse from her body. Even though Igarashi is overwhelmed from the life-threatening fight, Elydia reminds her that they still need to deal with the rest of the dogs. Suddenly, Arahito and Igarashi are attacked by a strange gust of wind. For some reason, this wind seems to have intentionally attacked them. While Arahito and Igarashi are unable to spot the threat, Derja seems to attack something invisible. Seeing this, Arahito recalls her chameleon boots, knowing that they allow her to blend into her surroundings. Since these boots are made of chameleon skin, he wonders if an actual chameleon monster is attacking them from the shadows. Since Derja can sense this chameleon, Arahito quickly tells Suzuna to shoot an arrow where she points. She quickly aims before shooting. With Derja's guidance and her auto-aim skill, the arrow hits its target dead on. With the chameleon's location exposed, Elydia chops it up with just one attack. Once all the monsters have been defeated, the party sits down to take a break. Arahito studies the dogs that paralyzed Igarashi, learning that they're called gaze hounds. Using their creepy eyes, these monsters can catch an adventurer off guard by stunning them on the spot. Still, Igarashi wonders why she was able to regain her movement after he supported her. Arahito explains that he has a morale support skill, which might have helped her move. Aside from this, he's more interested in the strange glow that Suzuna saw on the other party members. Before answering him, Suzuna takes a look around and notices that she and Misaki are glowing brighter than the others. Hearing this, Elydia tells the girls to look at their classes. As they pull out their phones, they find out that they all have a status condition called morale discharge. This condition comes from Arahito's morale support skill with some hidden effects. Misaki wonders what they are, so Elydia explains that these morale points are a representation of the team's mental condition. As long as they have enough morale support from Arahito, their bodies can use the positive energy to recover from minor conditions. Then, Arahito wonders what morale discharge refers to. Elydia reveals that this is a special ability which allows its user to unleash a hidden skill created by their class. Usually, an adventurer only gains morale points on their own, so it takes a lot of energy to use this hidden skill. However, with Arahito's morale support skill, it seems like their party can freely use these abilities. Now, everyone gets curious to see the effects of these hidden skills. Igarashi thinks they should check them out on the field, so Misaki agrees. Suzuna also gets excited to see her hidden strengths, so she asks Arahito for permission. He nods, wanting to see the party's full strength. Soon, they step out in an open field to test the new morale discharge skills. The first is Misaki, who uses her hidden skill called Fortune Roll. Suzuna uses her special skill called Moon Reading with her. As the girls activate their skills, their bodies glow with brilliant colors that extend towards the sky. First, Misaki's Fortune Roll appears in her hands, while Suzuna's Moon Reading skill parts the clouds, revealing a full moon in the sky. Then, this moon shines a brilliant light down to a specific area in the dungeon. Watching this scene, Arahito wonders if the girls accidentally discovered a combo skill. Meanwhile, Misaki gets worried for Suzuna, since she's frozen in her spot. Concerned, Arahito calls for her, which breaks her out of the daze. Noticing everyone's worried expressions, Suzuna reassures them that she's fine. Then, Igarashi points to the glowing spot illuminated by the moon. Suzuna notes that her moon reading was a success, so they move closer to the moonlight. There, they find a warp stone uncovered by the light. Elydia explains that this stone will teleport them to another floor of the labyrinth. However, she notes that their current labyrinth, Field of Dawn, is the easiest labyrinth of them all, so it only has 3 floors. Because of this, she wonders if the warp stone will lead them into an unknown location. Igarashi is worried that the stone is a trap, so she wonders if they should turn back. Arahito also agrees with her, but Misaki cheerfully jumps in excitement, saying that they should try their luck. Unfortunately, she trips on the edge of the stone and falls right on top of it. Suzuna reaches out to grab her, but it's already too late. The stone teleports Misaki away, so now they must decide how to save her. Elydia thinks there's no harm if she goes along and rescues her, but Arahito thinks he should go as the party leader. Hearing this, the other girls remind him that they'll just follow him anyway, so they should all go together to face any unexpected situations. Once they all decide, they step on the warp stone together. This stone leads them into a dark corridor, where Misaki is terrified behind a wall. Seeing her party, the scared girl runs towards them. Meanwhile, Arahito notes that this labyrinth is an unknown zone that prohibits the use of a return scroll, so they can only leave by exploring it completely. At the end of the dark corridor, he spots a bright light that leads to another room. Knowing that the other side might house some dangerous bosses, Arahito remains determined to protect his party no matter what. Soon, they all walk to the end of the corridor, which leads to a massive staircase with a gate on the top. Between the party and the gate stands a strange, unmoving metal statue. Facing this strange scene, Arahito and the others remain on full guard. Suzuna warns everyone to be careful, since her spirit detection skill is detecting some evil auras in the area. This aura is formed by the resentment of adventurers who fought a certain creature in this room and died in battle. Hearing this, Arahito thinks that those adventurers must have faced this metal statue, which seems to be a golem. Igarashi thinks he's overthinking things, but Arahito points out that nothing else in the room looks like it could come to life and attack them. Eventually, Igarashi also agrees that the statue is suspicious, so Elydia tells everyone to be prepared for a serious fight. At the sound of a fight, Misaki gets excited to use her attack dice, while Igarashi notes that she and Derja have fully charged their morale discharge skills. For now, Arahito tells them to keep the ultimate skills on standby, so Igarashi wonders if they can use Elydia's morale discharge instead. However, Elydia explains that her morale discharge only works when she is in a berserk state, so it's best not to rely on it. Hearing this, Arahito tells her that he'll get her curse fixed as soon as possible so she can freely use her ultimate skill. Then, once everyone is ready, Derja steps forward to scout the statue. As soon as she takes a step forward, the statue's eyes glow red, which confirms that it's alive. alive. Misaki quickly checks her phone and finds out that it's a level 6 named monster called a giant eagle warrior. Soon, the warrior wakes up and lets out a loud screech. The shockwaves from its force throw Derja back, but she blocks them with her shield. Igarashi notes that this monster is a level above the Juggernaut, so it's their hardest challenge yet. Then, as Arahito aims with his slingshot, she rushes forward to attack. After Igarashi leaves 2 hits on the monster's body, Arahito detects that it's about to hit her. With his warning, Igarashi quickly uses a mirage step to dodge the incoming counterattack. Then, Elidia further damages the monster with her powerful attack. After her, Suzuana uses her auto-aim skill to target the monster's head, but it actually protects the sensitive area. Seeing this, Arahito wonders if the eagle's head is the monster's weak spot. Suddenly, the monster uses a powerful wind blast which blows Elidia away. After using this attack, the monster stops to take a breath. This gives Arahito the chance to scan its head with his Hawkeye skill. Sure enough, he finds that the eagle head is extremely weak, so he attacks it with his slingshot. With just 1 hit, the monster roars in pain, so Arahito tells everyone else to target its head. Igarashi nods, preparing to attack, but Misaki warns her that the monster is making another move. As everyone watches, the monster uses a skill that envelops its body with a dark aura. Elidia tests its new abilities by using a sonic raid skill, which the monster quickly dodges. Surprised by its new speed, Elidia is unable to react as the monster launches an attack at her. Thankfully, Arahito uses defense support just in time to protect her from the hit. Still, the monster refuses to let them relax. Instead of targeting a single person, it unleashes an area of effect skill, raining arrows on the entire party. This gives Arahito barely enough time to create shields around everyone. Unfortunately, it takes him too long to protect himself, so one of the arrows pierces into his body. Watching his injury, the party is horrified. But Elidia tells Derja and Igarashi to support him while she holds off the monster. While Suzuna runs off to help Elidia, Misaki notes that Arahito's health is very low. Feeling scared that he'll lose his life, she thinks they should stop fighting and run away. However, Arahito tells her that they won't get the chance to treat him if the monster isn't defeated. Even in his horrible condition, he reveals that he has a secret trump card to defeat the Eagle Warrior. To start his master plan, he tells Igarashi and Derja to use their morale discharge together. They nod and join the battle with Elidia and Suzuna, with Igarashi using Mirage Soul and Derja casting Triple Steel. Igarashi's Mirage Soul creates Mirage clones of every single party member, giving them double defense and offense. With her Mirage clone, Elidia successfully attacks the Eagle Warrior from 2 directions. Igarashi also follows up with a double Thunderbolt, which cracks the monster's body and breaks off one of its eyes. Under the party's assault, the Eagle Warrior gets desperate and prepares to use its devastating area of effect skill again. This time, everyone successfully defends against the attack, since the Mirage clones also get a shield from Arahito's defense support. After this powerful attack, the monster starts panting from exhaustion, so Arahito uses a teleport skill to appear behind it and blast its head with his slingshot. The Eagle Warrior gets stunned, giving Elidia the chance to unleash her Blossom Blade skill. Although the skill heavily damages the monster, it remains alive, so Misaki is the final one to attack it. After rushing close to it, she tosses her iron dice on the monster's foot. To everyone's surprise, the tiny dice deplete its last remaining health, turning the monster into an unmoving stone. Once the monster is dead, everyone lets out a sigh of relief. Elidia quickly rushes to check on Arahito, only to find out that his wound has healed on its own. Igarashi wonders how he recovered, so he explains that Derja's morale discharge skill granted the entire party a life-steal effect, which drained the monster's life to heal his wound. Hearing this, Elidia is surprised. While Arahito thanks Derja for saving his life, she smiles before presenting him with 2 gems. Elidia explains that the black gem in her hand is an equipment rune, so he can use it with his slingshot. However, the red gem seems unfamiliar to her. Misaki points out that the red gem came from the monster's eye, so it might have some use further into the dungeon. Then, they all walk up to the gate at the end of the room. After Derja fails to open it, Misaki notes a small hole near the top of the gate, which looks suspiciously similar to their red gem. She wonders if the red gem is the key to opening this door, so Arahito lifts up Derja to try it. After she inserts the gem into the hole, the door opens with a heavy rumble. This door leads everyone into an empty room with a strange coffin at its center. As they all get close to the coffin, it shakes and releases a strange smoke as if detecting their presence. Soon, it opens up, revealing a woman sleeping inside. Misaki wonders if this woman is a doll, but Suzuna notes that she's actually alive. Then, there's just steps closer to the woman, which scares Arahito. However, she calmly points to a strange opening in the middle of the woman's chest, which looks like a keyhole. Seeing this, Arahito recalls receiving a strange key from the black chest he opened, wondering if this key will wake her up. He pushes it inside the keyhole with everyone's support. Soon, the key unlocks something, which causes Arahito to see a memory. In this memory, two firefighters are trying to put out a fire from a car that crashed in an accident. While they try to protect the person inside, the soul of the blue-haired woman watches them from a distance. After this memory ends, the woman wakes up and recognizes Arahito as the person who awoke her. He nods, so the woman introduces herself as Ariadne, the Iron Wheel. She calls herself the 117th hidden dog, which surprises Arahito. Ariadne thanks him for exploring this labyrinth and waking her up, but she apologizes that his efforts were all a waste. Arahito is confused by this, so she explains that she was created to reward the people who would find her. However, her creator abandoned her in this labyrinth, which gradually caused her to lose her powers. Aside from this, she also lost many of her mechanical parts, which has prevented her from recovering her strength. Suzuna wonders why she was abandoned, so she explains that her creator deemed her a failure. Since she was a failed product in his eyes, he sealed her away in the labyrinth. Hearing this, Igarashi thinks it's extremely cruel to abandon someone, and Derja clenches her fist in rage. Meanwhile, Arahito wonders if there's a way to rescue her from the labyrinth. Ariadne explains that he can rescue her by finding her lost parts and pledging his loyalty to her. However, she warns him against it, because doing so would make him an enemy of all other hidden gods. Arahito wonders why he can't just be friends with the other gods, but Ariadne tells him that the rules cannot be changed. If a person pledges their loyalty to one of the hidden gods, they will bear the responsibility of gathering the rest of them. While Elidia is confused by these words, Ariadne tells the party that only one of the hidden gods is strong enough to be a worthy ally. Since she's a failure with lost parts, she's too weak to fight any of the other hidden gods in a fight. Hearing this, Arahito understands why she's warning him so strictly. Still, he knows that his party wants to save this abandoned person, so he asks them all if they agree. One by one, all of the party members agree to help Ariadne. In addition, Elidia thinks that Ariadne will be a great help once she can restore some of her powers. Hearing their responses, Ariadne is surprised, but Arahito asks her how he can pledge his loyalty to her. At this, she points with her hand, which forms a contract between Arahito and her. Using this contract, he can now contact her with his phone. Although Ariadne cannot do much with her current strength, she promises to help the party if they ever encounter danger. Then, she starts creating a portal which will lead them back to the surface. As she creates the portal, Suzuna wonders if they can come visit her again, so Ariadne tells her they can visit after she regains her strength. Soon, they all say goodbye and return to the surface of the labyrinth. Once they're all outside, everyone celebrates their victory in the dangerous labyrinth. Igarashi thanks Arahito for his quick thinking and support which helped them survive, so he accepts her thanks. However, the exhaustion catches up to him, so he stumbles to the ground. Igarashi quickly supports him, knowing that he's the most tired of them all. Meanwhile, in the sealed room, Ariadne notes that it took over 860 years for her lock to open. Knowing that Arahito is the one who saved her, she searches through his memories. In one of his memories, a bloodied woman is holding baby Arahito in her arms, praying for him to survive. After this incident, he refused to let any of his friends get hurt in his presence. Seeing his sincere resolve, Ariadne uses a protection spell to support him from the sidelines. Later, after Arahito returns home, he informs Luisa about the secret dungeon. Although she is used to his law-defying feats, this one completely stuns her into silence. She explains that Arahito's group just discovered uncharted territory, which means they've gotten a massive amount of contribution points in one go. In fact, Arahito has gained so many contribution points that his party has become the #1 ranked party in District 8. Hearing this, even Arahito is shocked, since he never expected the dungeon to be such a big deal. As he returns home from the guild, he hopes that the other parties don't cause trouble for him because of his newfound rank. Along the way, they encounter a commotion with some people people shouting. From a distance, Arahito can see Shin and Falma's 2 children at the center of the commotion, so he goes in to check. It turns out that some thug is harassing the 2 kids for bumping into him and is demanding money for their offense. Arahito asks the man to let the children go, but he demands payment from him instead. Falma's daughter tells him that the man bumped into them on purpose, so Arahito realizes that this scumbag is literally bullying children for their lunch money. Although he wants to help the kids, he doesn't want to show his own abilities, so he asks the kids to make Shin join his party temporarily. Soon, Shin joins his party, so Arahito can now buff her. Meanwhile, the thug gets angry and tries to attack Shin, which completely fails thanks to defense support. Then, Arahito uses attack support on Shin, allowing her to knock the thug into the ground. After getting humbled, the cowardly thug runs away, and Falma soon rushes over to check on her kids. As she thanks Arahito for protecting them, he reminds her that Shin did all the hard work. Then, Shin gets closer to him, so the kids explain that she wants a pet. Derja also gets excited, so Falma gives her permission to pet her as well. Impressed by Shin's abilities, Arahito asks Falma where he can get a guard dog like her. Since he likes her dog so much, Falma allows him to take Shin to his next dungeon to get some experience. He accepts the offer, eager to see how Shin's own defense abilities can help his party. Afterward, he regroups with the rest of the party outside the dissection shop. The shop owner welcomes them all inside, pleased to get some good customers. His daughter, Melissa, also pokes out her head, explaining that she has received the materials of a gaze hound and plane eater. Without another word, she walks over to the monster's body and starts chopping them up. Meanwhile, Arahito asks the shop owner, Reincarnates, if he can appraise his monster materials as well. Unfortunately, Reincarnates refuses since he doesn't have the ability, so he advises Arahito to find a party member with the appraisal skill. Still, he feels surprised that Arahito's party managed to survive fighting a gaze hound and chameleon at the same time. Usually, the average seeker would lose their life or get turned into a demi-human in such a situation. Thankfully, there is a way to help demi-humans return to normal. Reincarnates thinks that this is a deliberate way left for demi-humans to have hope. Arahito agrees with him, explaining that he wants to help Derja to return back to normal as well. Hearing this, Reincarnates is truly surprised. He admits that he didn't mention demi-human as a passing remark, but because his wife is always on his mind. Unfortunately, she died during one of her adventures and became a demi-human. When some adventurers find her, she was pregnant with Melissa. After returning home, she entrusted Melissa to her father and joined another party to continue adventuring, since she could only find the way to undo her transformation by getting stronger. Touched by this story, Arahito praises Reincarnates for letting his wife separate from him for the sake of her freedom. Reincarnates isn't flattered too much, since he thinks he's doing a bad job at raising his daughter. Since Melissa has grown up in his shop, she has become obsessed with dissecting all kinds of rare monster materials. Unfortunately, this means that she spends most of her time working inside instead of interacting with other kids her age. Although it's good to learn a skill for her future, Reincarnates wonders if it's worth sacrificing her childhood for. Hearing his story, Igarashi also feels bad for Reincarnates, who hopes that his daughter can explore the outside world one day. Still, even if he means well for her, Reincarnates wonders if he's being a controlling father by pushing his daughter to interact with others. Melissa disagrees, saying that she never felt burdened by his advice. Then, she presents Arahito with a camouflage stone she obtained from the chameleon's body. Using this stone, Arahito can give his equipment the stealth skill, which would allow him to blend with his surroundings. He thinks about giving this stone to a vanguard, but Igarashi tells him to use it for herself. She reminds Arahito to take some care of himself as well, otherwise he'd get injured again like he did against the Eagle Warrior. Still, Melissa warns him that the stealth skill consumes a lot of mana, so he should use it very carefully. He nods, wondering how to use the stone with his current skills. By using stealth with his rear stance ability, he thinks that it would allow him to kill enemies from behind without them noticing. After thinking about it, he finally decides to equip the stone. Then, recalling Reincarnates' earlier words, he asks Melissa if she'd like to explore the labyrinth with his party. She nods, so he tells her to be prepared to join his party on their next mission. Afterward, Arahito and the party visit Lady Alaris' mansion, where they'll get their own royal suite. At the reception, a maid called Millet leads the girls to their rooms, while Arahito is called over to register. While he signs the registration form, another adventurer walks over to greet him. Since this is Arahito's first time here, he politely returns the greeting and explains that they'll be neighbors from now on. The adventurer explains that he's the leader of the party that used to be number one. Now, he's interested in the man who dethroned him. Hearing this, Arahito acts all humble, claiming that he doesn't have the experience to deserve the highest rank. Instead, he tells the man that his party got to rank 1 through sheer luck. Although the other adventurer knows that Arahito is new, he still thinks that he has some overpowered abilities that allowed him to rank up so quickly. He wonders if Arahito has a high-level party member who helped him climb the ranks, so he explains that they recently gained a powerful level 9 member. At the mention of this person, the guy figures that it must be Elydia, who recently came to their district. Arahito is surprised, since he expected the man to be angrier at him for kicking him out of the top spot. Meanwhile, the guy notes that Arahito is being shy, so he introduces himself as Jorg, the leader of Polaris, and tells him to drop the formalities with him. Hearing his party's name, Arahito realizes that he hasn't given his own party a name yet. Jorg is surprised, but he simply tells Arahito to create a name since he's the leader. However, he refuses, saying that his party's success depends on all its members, so he won't decide on a name without hearing their opinion. Surprised by his humble attitude, George smiles and leaves to handle his own work. Afterward, Arahito goes to his dining room, where everyone is served a 5-star meal. He, Igarashi, and Suzuna enjoy their meals, but Misaki feels bad about eating monster meat, since she doesn't want it. She gives the food to Derja instead, who happily accepts it. At this, Elydia starts teasing her, claiming that she'll stop growing if she doesn't eat enough food. However, Misaki points out that she's already taller than her, which hurts her feelings. Then, Elydia herself also gets sick of her veggies, so she gives half of them to Suzuna instead. Meanwhile, Igarashi also gets full, so she gives her remaining food to Derja. Watching her eat from everyone's dishes, Arahito is surprised by her massive appetite. Elydia wonders if he can ask Derja to write down her favorite foods, but Arahito shakes his head, explaining that she cannot communicate with any words at all, including writing. Still, she can understand everything she sees and hears. Suzuna feels sad, since she can't help Derja even with her healing skills. To console her, Derja offers some of her own food, but she refuses. Arahito also reminds everyone not to overeat, since they have an adventure coming soon. If they went into battle with bloated stomachs, it might end up ruining their entire trip. Hearing this, Derja keeps on eating her food without a care. Meanwhile, Misaki asks Arahito if she'll be going on their next trip. He refuses, explaining that her level is quite low, so it might put her in danger. Also, they will have Shin and Melissa with them, so the party would be full without her. Although Misaki understands his reasoning, she still asks to come with them, saying that she'll avoid danger at the back. Hearing this, Arahito starts wondering how to protect her, while Misaki tells him that she'll boost the party's luck with her presence. At this, he checks her skills and finds out that she has a bunch of drop rate increase and luck boosting skills, which would allow the party to easily farm high quality loot. Since this is the case, Arahito decides to bring her on their next trip. Watching Misaki get all the attention, Suzuna asks Arahito to look at her skills as well. He nods and checks out all her archery skills before deciding to save her skill points for a multi-shot ability. The next day, the party prepares to head to the labyrinth. On their way, they stop as a massive commotion erupts behind them. After taking a closer look, Arahito spots an army of flying monsters in the sky. Elydia shouts that it's a monster stampede threatening to destroy their entire city. Suddenly, one of the monsters swoops down and knocks a man to the ground. After checking on the man, Arahito helps evacuate the area into a safe zone. Later, in the Adventurers Guild, he asks Elydia why monsters are appearing in the city. She explains that the labyrinth occasionally ejects monsters into the city whenever it gets overpopulated to maintain the balance inside. These events are called stampedes, and it's the guild's responsibility to manage them. Luisa explains that most adventurers were avoiding the swamp area in the labyrinth, which caused the monsters in that region to overflow into the city. Ultimately, she admits that it's the guild's fault for not sending anyone to the swamp in time. After apologizing to the party for the guild's oversight, she also explains that their guards are busy protecting the rest of the city, so they cannot assist them around the guild's main building. Arahito tells Suzuna to set up her salt barrier around the building to protect the injured. Grateful for his help, Luisa begs him to protect the town, which he promises to do. Once the building is covered with Suzuna's salt barrier, Elydia shows Arahito the location of most of the monsters in town. For some reason, the majority is gathered around the first labyrinth's entrance, so Arahito decides to head there and eliminate the main threat. Before heading out, he orders everyone to take their respective positions and reminds them to add barriers to other safe buildings along the way. On the way to the labyrinth, they encounter some flying monsters out of reach to bait them into attacking. Arahito asks Igarashi to make a decoy clone for Elydia. She creates the clone, which fights together with Elydia. While the two of them defeat the monsters, Suzuna creates another safe zone around a large building. Suddenly, Arahito notices two flying doom monsters, along with a demi-harpy flying toward his party. He quickly warns everyone to be on guard, hoping to defeat these incoming intruders to gain more morale points for the main fight. Suddenly, as Elydia defeats a stray monster, a soft lullaby distracts her. Under the effects of this lullaby, Elydia, Igarashi, and the others all fall asleep. In the end, Derja barely manages to remain standing, while Arahito also resists the lullaby. Then, he notices the harpy in the sky and tries to get her with his slingshot, but she's too far out of range. The harpy laughs at Arahito's pathetic attempt before calling two sweet birds for backup. She buffs the birds with another lullaby and orders them to attack the girls. Seeing this, Derja tries to protect the girls, but she moves too slowly due to the lingering effects of the sleeping lullaby. Knowing she'll be too late, Arahito uses a rear stance to sacrifice himself to protect the sleeping girls. The bird lurches towards him with its attack, but suddenly, Falma appears and defeats it with her guard dog. Although Arahito is relieved by her arrival, he knows that the danger isn't over yet. If the harpy uses another lullaby, his entire party might get wiped out. He quickly uses rear stance to grab the harpy from behind, asking Shin to catch them falling. After Shin rescues him, Falma's older guard dog pins down the harpy, so the party is safe for now. Suddenly, Derja hugs Arahito, clearly afraid of losing him. Afterward, they take the unconscious girls into the safe zone, where Arahito admits that he got too careless and almost let them die because of one simple status condition. Then, Falma gives some anti-sleep pills to Derja, explaining that Shin immediately rushed out when she sensed Arahito in danger. After explaining this, she completely transfers Shin's ownership to Arahito, making her an official member of the party. Soon, the girls wake up, wondering what happened. After Arahito explains everything to them, he wonders what to do with the captured harpy. Falma explains that he can send it to a monster ranch, where it will be trained to fight for him. He accepts her suggestion before giving everyone an anti-sleep pill for the future. Then, Falma gives him a ring that protects against the confusion status, so the girls tell him to equip it, since he's their leader. Once everyone has recovered, Arahito checks his map and learns that the main monster group is causing immense destruction. Meanwhile, near the labyrinth entrance, the entire area is a scene of destruction. Only a few stragglers like Ribalt and other adventurers have survived by hiding under the debris. As they spot Arahito's party, they warn them to stay away from the monsters. At the sound of his voice, Arahito notes a massive named monster in the sky, which attacks him with a poison spike. The spike is too fast to dodge, but luckily, Ribald jumps out and saves Arahito just in time. Then, one of the other monsters attacks a girl hiding in a building. Arahito quickly orders Shin, who protects the girl. Then, he also notices two harpies in the sky, so he orders Suzuna and Misaki to take them out before they can cause any trouble. Although they defeat the harpies with their ranged attacks, two sweet birds shoot towards them to take revenge. Suddenly, a massive chained hammer kills both of the birds as Layla joins the fight. Then, the named monster unleashes its ultimate attack toward Igarashi, who dodges it with her Mirage Step. After the attack is over, Arahito notes that the named monster must cool down for 15 seconds before it can unleash another devastating attack. With this knowledge, he guides his party members to defeat the rest of the flying monsters, while dodging the boss monster's attacks on time. Finally, only the gigantic boss monster is left in the sky. Arahito orders his party to take cover, hoping to avoid the monster monster's next attack. For some reason, it remains floating in the sky without making another move, which confuses him. Then, he finally realizes that the monster is preparing to use a physical attack from above. However, the target of this attack is not Arahito, but Ribalt, who is trying to rescue the injured girl. Unfortunately, Arahito is too far away to save him, and he would get swallowed up by the monster if he got too close as well. He tries to use defense support to protect Ribalt, but clearly, the spell is not powerful enough to resist the massive boss monster. In the end, Arahito decides to contact Ariadne through their connection to assist Ribalt. After notifying her, he maintains the defense support around Ribalt for as long as he can, hoping for the best. Soon, Ariadne receives his message and answers with two mechanical guard arms that stop the monster in its tracks. As the massive arms appear in the sky, everyone watches in shock, including Ribalt, who can't believe he's still alive. Then, as the arms force the monster to the ground, Arahito screams at his party to finish it off. Quickly, Igarashi, Misaki, and Derja use their morale to support Elydia. With the boost from their abilities, she rushes forward and defeats the boss monster with a Blossom Blade skill. After the boss dies, Arahito breathes a sigh of relief, and Ariadne withdraws to her chamber. Afterward, the party gets busy helping all the adventurers who were injured. Aside from the injured, the party also managed to catch the two demi-harpies, so Arahito decides to send them to the ranch. Then, Elydia brings over a strange magic stone dropped by the boss. To examine the item, Arahito uses an appraisal scroll he got from the black chest, revealing that it's a confusion stone. Hearing this, Elydia notes that the boss monster must have had an attack that caused confusion. Thankfully, they managed to defeat it before it could cause more chaos. Then, Arahito checks on Ribalt, who praises him for saving the whole city. Soon, Melissa and her dad also walk over, happy to see everyone safe. Excited to have yet another rare monster, Melissa asks Arahito if she can process it, so he gives her the okay. Then, he walks over to Layla, who reassures him that she's fine. However, she asks Arahito what kind of skill he used to hold back the boss monster. She wonders if it was a summoned beast, but Arahito dodges the question and acts like it was just a defensive skill. Seeing this, Layla refrains from poking further into his secrets. Finally, Arahito walks over to the merchant girl whose entire shop was destroyed. As the poor girl looks at all her ruined goods, she recognizes Arahito from the time he purchased items from her. He offers to help her clean up the mess, but she shakes her head, saying there's no point in cleaning up the wreckage. She tells him about her story, starting out as a beginner adventurer with big dreams. Although she tried her best, she could never get stronger in the labyrinth because she lacked the talent. After a while, she gave up on adventuring and began selling equipment to beginner adventurers for cheap. Now, she feels devastated that the monster has destroyed the new life she worked so hard to build after so many failures. Seeing this, everyone in Arahito's party feels bad for the girl. Watching her cry on her knees, Arahito realizes there's a way he can help her. He asks if she wants to become his party's exclusive merchant, which would allow her to gain experience from their missions, even if she didn't personally fight. Also, Arahito needs a merchant and exclusive appraiser, so she would still get to do her job. Hearing this, the girl is shocked, refusing to believe that the strongest party in the district would accept a common merchant like her. Then, after seeing the kind looks on everyone's faces, she decides to accept Arahito's offer, crying from relief. Later, Arahito reports everything to the Adventurers Guild. Louisa thanks him for saving the whole district and explains that his accomplishment was so big that his party will be directly promoted to District 7 without an exam. At this information, Arahito feels a little upset, since he was hoping to take the exam with Polaris. Louisa explains that Polaris is already taking their exam to enter District 7, so he gets curious how it works. She reveals that seekers in District 7 must be prepared to camp in their labyrinths, since the journey inside takes a longer time. Also, many monsters in the District 7 labyrinth attack at night, so the exam prepares District 8 parties for these scenarios before sending them forward. Hearing this, Arahito thinks it's a good idea to take the exam with his party before ranking up. just to be prepared. After heading home, he tells everyone that they'll take the exam, but Elydia gets angry that he's not accepting the direct promotion. After she leaves, the rest of the party members agree with Arahito, but they know she has her reasons to be angry. Then, Arahito sits down to think about the day's events. If he hadn't gotten lucky with all the help, he knows that his entire party could have died. Because of this, he wants to be even more careful in the future as their leader. After thinking about it, he checks out Derja's skill points. This time, he unlocks the double throw skill for combat and sneak attack for stealth missions. With her shadow step and sneak attack, he gives the scouting role to Derja. Then, he takes a look at his own spells. Derja points to the rearguard general skill, which would greatly boost his combat strength, but Arahito thinks it's better to learn another support skill for the party. However, she insists on the rearguard general skill, so Arahito promises to get it later. In the end, he picks the charge support skill, which will reduce skill cooldown times for his party members. After learning about it, Igarashi is surprised by his selflessness, thinking that he always puts others first. Derja also agrees with her, leaving him completely cornered. That was episode 8. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.